All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Listen to Your Gut. Before we do get started, just a couple of those housekeeping items to take care of. We will hopefully have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those into the question box in the lower portion of your control panel. We will be posting a recording of the webinar online, but if you would like a copy of the presentation in PDF format, or if your question does not get answered today, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. All right, so here's the agenda we've got today. I will start by giving you a few basics on what's in our gut that we need to be listening to. Then I'll go into how the gut affects our health. Hint, it affects it a lot. And then I'll touch on how we are affecting our gut health. And then I'll dive into some tips on how to get that gut feeling great. I'm probably going to break the record for saying gut for the most times in the world in 30 minutes as well, so bear with me. So, what is in my gut and why should I care? Well, for starters, let's talk bacteria. When people hear bacteria, they automatically think, oh no, that's bad, right? We need to get that out of there. But that's not true when it comes to gut bacteria. If you have the right bacteria in your gut, it can keep you extremely healthy. Your gut contains 10 times more bacteria than all the human cells in your entire body. Our gut is home to about 100 trillion microorganisms. That's pretty crazy. Here's the thing though, there's the good bacteria, there's also bad bacteria in there. Our good bacteria processes hard to digest foods, it produces nutrients that our body needs, and it guards against disease, which I'm going to talk about more here in just a bit. Studies suggest these bacteria not only protect us from things like foodborne pathogens, but also from things like cold-causing germs. Cure for the common cold might just be in our gut. The bad bacteria we have in our gut releases toxins and are associated with health problems. Things all the way from autoimmune disorders, depression, allergies, diabetes, even cancer, just to name a few, may have an underlying cause within that balance of our gut bacteria. That's something we need to pay attention to. Along those lines, just a few symptoms I want you to look for to know if you might have some balance issues with your gut bacteria. And then these are just a few of the concerns that could be tied to your gut health. We know there's lots of other things that can go on with our health, but these are the things that could be tied to your gut. Gas, bloating, kind of the obvious ones, diarrhea, nausea, constipation, abdominal pain, but then we go into food sensitivities, mood changes or anxiety, eczema or acne, frequent infections, autoimmune disease, fatigue. Again, this is just a few. I'll touch on a few more as we go along, but if you have some of these concerns, you may want to look inside that gut to find an answer. Now, even though this is becoming more widespread knowledge, things like that, we're still pretty much at the beginning of our knowledge of how our gut plays a role in our health. But we do know some things. Just to reiterate what I said in the last slide and to add it a bit, our gut flora, which just means the microorganisms in our gut, promote normal GI or gastrointestinal function, which makes sense, right, since that's where we digest all of our food. It also provides protection from infection inside that digestive system. Next, to build on that protection of illnesses, the gut comprises more than 75% of our immune system. That number right there should stop you in your tracks. 75% of our immune system is in our gut. Yeah. So let's think about that when you think about how important it is to protect that gut bacteria. I want to dive into this just a little more. Your gut flora strengthens the physical defenses of our gut wall. Our gut wall is layers of cells and then chemical barriers, which is that acidity that's in there, which make it harder for the bad bacteria to get in and cause illnesses. Now, gut flora actually activate immune functions in those cell layers. They also affect the pH of the gut environment, therefore making it more deadly to that bad bacteria. Another way gut flora helps out against illnesses is simply the competition factor. The healthy gut bacteria feed on the same resources as the bad, so if there are more of the good, then the bad don't have anything to use and we can help get rid of them. Gut flora also regulates inflammation. Again, if you've heard our webinars in the past, you know that inflammation is the key to really everything that goes wrong in our bodies. So the fact that having a healthy gut helps with this, again, should be reason enough for you to write down some of those tips I'm going to be giving you here later in the webinar. And like I already said, science points to the fact that these microorganisms also work on things like colds and respiratory infections. Changes in our gut flora as we get older are part of the reason elderly people are more prone to respiratory infections in the first place. So we need to start now taking care of that gut so we can help ourselves in the future as well. Okay, let's move on and talk about a few things that our gut can affect. Mental health, which I touched on once already. Some of you may have heard that your gut is also known as your second brain. If you haven't, this is your fun fact for the day. There's even a name for it. It's the enteric nervous system, or ENS. It's literally hundreds of millions of nerve cells in the lining of your GI tract. And it's connected directly to our brainstem by the vagus nerve. It's responsible for controlling digestion, all the way from swallowing, breakdown of foods, nutrient absorption, to the end of the road, elimination. But there are other things that researchers are now finding that is affected by this second brain. The ENS plays a role in producing 30 different neurotransmitters. An example you may be familiar with is serotonin, the feel-good hormone. So again, when we're talking a link in mental health, serotonin is very important in that, and the fact that the gut secretes that is really important. Because for a long time, we thought that anxiety and depression contributed to things like irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea, things like that. But now there is some evidence that's pointing to that irritation in the GI system may be the trigger, and the mood changes may be an effect. Again, it goes both ways, but we know that it could be kind of the opposite now in some cases. I found that extremely interesting, and it's very valuable if you struggle with concerns with your mental health or your GI health, either one. So this is actually, we are seeing more doctors prescribe antidepressants for someone that has irritable bowel syndrome, not because they think it's caused by depression, but because these medications can act on the nerve cells in the gut. It makes that ENS, or our second brain, communicate better with our first brain. And researchers are now interested in seeing how they can work with this and what effects may be happening with regards to things like memory and other cognition skills. I'm not going to be able to hit on everything, but there are studies working on the effects the gut might have on things like autism too. That's going to get some attention if we find some connections there. So wait and see. Keep the lookout for the research. Do your own research as well. See what's out there. All right. The gut helps metabolize or regulate metabolism. So if I keep my gut healthy, I may burn my calories more efficiently and maybe lose some weight. Absolutely, that can certainly help. There have been studies that show that obese individuals have more certain bacteria that turn calories from sugar into fat easier. Nobody wants that. You don't want your sugars to turn into fat easier, but certain individuals have that. In that same study, lean people had 90% more of another bacteria strain that is believed to break down starches and fibers into shorter molecules that the body can use as energy. So it's not getting stored. We're using it as that energy. So let's just say that gut health should definitely be a consideration if your goal is increasing your metabolism and maintaining a healthy weight. Staying on the same track, cravings can be affected by our gut as well. Most of us have those, right? Well, to keep it simple, different microbes prefer different types of food, those things in our gut. So again, if we can learn to feed the good bacteria what it wants and not give the bad bacteria anything to live on, we'll get more of the good bacteria, and those cravings will become more and more for the good food. Does that make sense, hopefully? Another one I wanted to add here, because I know it will get some of you motivated, your skin. Who doesn't want clearer skin? The mechanism behind how this works has to do with something called leaky gut syndrome. Basically, the pores in your digestive tract widen too much with bad bacteria. And then that bacteria leaks out into your bloodstream. Your body then detects this and tries to fight it because it's bacteria, right? But that causes inflammation in our body. So things like acne and rosacea are both inflammatory conditions, meaning they are caused by too much inflammation. Now, lower that bad bacteria, and you can help that skin look good too. Lots and lots of different things. And again, I just touched on a few here. All right, so let's talk about what we do then in our daily lives that is affecting our gut and bacteria, which then in turn affects our health. I'm going to highlight the main contributors, but again, do your research on some of these because there are other things out there to be aware of. I want to talk diet first. It makes sense that the biggest factor in our gut health would be the food we send down there, right? So first I want to touch on, it should be no surprise, sugar and processed food. Again, if you've watched any of our webinars, this is kind of what we preach all the time. Sugar and processed foods are basically a fertilizer for our bad bacteria. Preservatives, artificial sweeteners and colors, chemically modified ingredients, sugar, industrial seed oils, things like canola oil, those types of things are found in many processed foods. Things like that cause inflammation in our body, which we know is not good to begin with. These foods also feed that bad bacteria in our gut. So like I mentioned earlier, we want to be sure the good bacteria is getting all the resources, but unfortunately when we're eating that processed food, we are feeding the bad stuff. Whole foods, whole foods, whole foods. I'm going to touch on some specific foods that can target the good bacteria, but as a general rule, eat your lean, quality source proteins, fruits, veggies for the majority of your diet. A quick note on pesticides. Again, this is a big topic. I'm not going to get into too much, but when we ingest or inhale pesticides on our food or in the air, our gut perceives them as invaders, again, triggering that inflammation, triggering that negative response. So try to keep your foods and your air. I know that's kind of out of our control sometimes, but just be aware of that affects our gut health as well. Stress. We have already touched on how the gut can affect our mental health, so we know there's connection. So stress as a contributor to gut health should not come as a surprise to anyone. It works both ways. Our body releases hormones as a way to coordinate our body's response to stress, which is good in the moment if we're at a threat, right? But these hormones that we release also attack our good bacteria because it's attacking any bacteria, which again can lead to that leaky gut and cause all sorts of problems. So I bet you can guess one of the tips for the things that you can do will be to have a way to deal with stress. Yes, that will come. Antibiotics. Okay, before anyone gets the wrong idea, we are not against antibiotics or medications. Absolutely not. They have a place in our life when we get infections or illnesses that we can't get rid of naturally. The concern is that we are tending to overuse them. They should be considered more of a last resort for those illnesses that you can't let run its course naturally. Because unfortunately, our gut health can sometimes even be permanently damaged by too many antibiotics. Antibiotics just simply destroy all bacteria, good and bad, no matter. It can't distinguish between the two, and it's just looking to fix the problem, so it wipes everything out. Now, with time constraints and heavy demands on all healthcare professionals, sometimes we just don't have the time to go over other methods or, to go over the explanations on why maybe we shouldn't reach for those meds right away. So sometimes we get to prescribe them when we really maybe don't need it. So but again, sometimes we do. You have to make the best decision for you. But just be really mindful and ask those questions as much as you can before you choose to go down that path. If that is the best option for you at the time, the next step would be to take the steps after those antibiotics are done to restore your gut health as quickly and as much as possible. And again, I'm going to talk about some good foods and things to make sure you're getting in that diet if you do have to do a round of antibiotics. Same area, the NSAIDs are another type of medication we just need to be aware of. NSAID stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So things like Advil, Aleve, ibuprofen, aspirin. Remember what I just said about the leaky gut and the pores in our gut lining opening up? Well, again, NSAIDs can cause that same thing. Again, they do have a place in our life, but when we are taking them consistently for long periods of time, that's when it leads to that leaky gut. And then, again, we go to get all other sorts of issues that I've already talked about. So same thing as I said on antibiotics. Know why you're taking the medication. See if there are more natural ways to help your body and get off them as soon as you can. Things like NSAIDs help the symptoms of something, but you're not necessarily treating the cause. So I want you to work with your healthcare professionals to find that underlying cause and how you can help that by maybe changing something in your lifestyle. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. What can we do in our own life to help our gut health? I gave you some things to stay away from in the last few slides, so let's find some things that we can focus on including regularly to feed that good bacteria. Again, this list is not comprehensive, but here are some good ideas to get you started. First thing, fermented foods. I'm going to spend a lot of time on these. Fermented foods promote and support that good bacteria in our gut. They are probiotic, which I will touch on at the end on our last slide here just a bit more, but basically means they promote that good bacteria again. Fermentation is the chemical breakdown of a substance by bacteria, yeast, or other microorganisms. And then a byproduct of this fermentation process is lactic acid. Some of you may be familiar with this term. If you're an exerciser, we get lactic acid buildup in our muscles, which fatigues them. But we actually like lactic acid in our gut as it helps us balance that stomach acid and digestive enzymes, making it easier to digest foods and have less digestive concerns. So, options here. First one, kombucha. This is a fermented black or green tea drink, very popular in Asia and actually becoming more and more popular in the U.S. It's pretty widely available around really any grocery store. There's bottles of it that you can buy now. Lots of different flavors, things that combine different types of things, but that is a great drink if you're looking for something for that gut health. Sauerkraut and kimchi. Sauerkraut is finely shredded cabbage that's been fermented by lactic acid bacteria. Most of you probably see these things on hot dogs, sausages, things like that, but may not have known that it's actually really good for your gut. But be sure you choose the unpasteurized version. Pasteurization kills the live and active bacteria. Along with the probiotic qualities, sauerkraut also has fiber, vitamin C, B, K, iron, and manganese. So while I don't condone having hot dogs every day, know that the little side of the sauerkraut is a great choice. And again, kimchi, that's a Korean side dish. Similar to sauerkraut, as cabbage is usually the main ingredient, but it can also be made from other veggies as well. But again, same probiotic qualities. This also has vitamin K, riboflavin, which is vitamin B2, and iron. So good stuff there. Yogurt. This is probably the most popular and widely known fermented food and one that you hear about in commercials as far as gut health, things like that. So a couple notes on yogurt though. Not all yogurt contains active or live cultures, so be sure you look at that. It's going to say on the side of the label. Also, a lot of yogurt contains added sugars, which I just told you feeds the bad bacteria. So we want to go for plain yogurt, and then you can flavor it up with fresh fruit or something like that if you need some sweetness. You can choose yogurt or kefir, which I'm going to mention here in a second, instead of milk in your smoothies to add the probiotic component. That's a really easy way just to get that stuff into your daily diet. So like I said, kefir, you can find that with the yogurt products in your local grocery store. It's right next to them. It's a fermented milk drink. It's made by adding kefir grains or the cultures of bacteria and yeast to cows or goat's milk. And they actually say it's a little bit better of a source of probiotics than yogurt just because it has several strains of good bacteria, which makes it more diverse and in turn makes it more potent. It's also generally well tolerated by people who are lactose intolerant, so another plus there if you have any concerns with dairy. Like I said, add it to a smoothie for an easy way to incorporate it into your lifestyle. All right, tempeh. This is a fermented soybean product. It's a good high-protein substitute for meat. So if you're vegetarian or avoid meat and dairy, this may be a good option for you. I personally never had it, but I've been told it's kind of comparison to like a mushroom or like a nutty or earthy flavor. So what happens, the fermentation process lowers the amount of phytic acid that is in soybeans, which is good because that compound actually can impair the absorption of minerals like zinc and iron. And then in that fermentation process, it also creates vitamin 12 as a byproduct, which is found in animal foods and dairy products. So again, if you're staying away from the meat or dairy, this could be a good option for you. Pickles. I think most of you know what pickles are, cucumbers that have been pickled in salt and water. One note, if you use vinegar to make your own pickles or buy pickles that have been made in vinegar, those do not have the same probiotic effects. It can't be made in vinegar. That negates the effects. One food swap that some of you bread lovers may be interested in is sourdough bread. Again, I'm not going to condone eating bread a whole bunch, but this specific kind can be a good swap for when you want a nice sandwich. Sourdough bread is made from sourdough, which is a fermented dough that is made from the naturally occurring yeast and bacteria in the flour. Just be sure it's fresh, just be sure there's not much additives, things like that. But again, great option to get some good gut health if you need a little bread fix. Fiber, always a good thing for so many reasons, but also for gut health. Veggies, legumes, beets, fruit, and whole grains in moderation are a great source of nutrients for gut microorganisms. Our body doesn't digest fiber, but fiber can be digested by certain bacteria in our gut, the good stuff. So that's why it's beneficial. There are some studies that suggest diets high in these foods can prevent the growth of some of that disease-causing bacteria. So it not only feeds the good stuff, but it can maybe prevent the growth of the bad stuff, good stuff. All right, resistant starch. This is a fairly complicated topic, but I want to mention it and encourage you to do some research on resistant starches. But basically, things like unripe bananas, yes, they're green bananas, cooked and then cooled rice or potatoes have resistant starch in them. It's similar to fiber in that your body doesn't digest it, so it reaches that colon intact, and then it's beneficial to that gut bacteria. Things like this, you really want to gradually add into your diet if you're interested in it, because you can get some bloating or gas that can occur while that gut flora changes. So talk to your doctor if you do have concerns about that, but that's something else to look into too. All right, let's go to polyphenols. These are plant compounds that have many health benefits. Similar to the fiber I just touched on and the resistant starch, they can't always be digested by human cells. So they go to the colon where they can be digested by gut bacteria. Examples of good sources of polyphenols are going to be cocoa and dark chocolate, at least 70% dark chocolate, guys, don't go crazy. Grape skins, green tea, almonds, onions, blueberries, and broccoli. Yes, red wine is technically on the list too, but only with that very moderate amount, 4 ounces for women, 8 ounces for men. If you don't drink it, I wouldn't suggest starting. Go with the grapes instead. All right, manage stress. I said this one already. I'm not going to go into details on stress management. We did just do a webinar last month on this topic, and I do encourage you to reach out to our health coaches to talk more on specifics of stress management if you are concerned with that area. And sleep as well. When you have a healthy sleep cycle, your body produces melatonin and prolactin, both of which have been found to help improve the bacteria balance in our gut. So again, so many different factors are going into our gut. We just need to look at overall health, see the small changes we can make. And then again, be smart with antibiotics. Something I mentioned already, have a conversation with your doctor, do your research. And then cut down on the antibacterials a little bit. I know, again, we get mixed messages on this stuff, but you may have heard in the recent news with triclosan. That's an antibacterial in many soaps and things like deodorants. They found that this ingredient may mess with our gut health. So while personal hygiene is very important, going too far with some of these chemicals can cut down on a healthy bacteria we are exposed to, making our gut less diverse, and it actually hurts our ability to deal with different illnesses that come about. So on that same note, getting outside, breathing and playing in the fresh air and in the dirt can help our gut health. When we diversify the bacteria from nature that we're exposed to, it actually helps diversify our gut microbiome as well. I'm not talking about eating dirt. I'm just talking about playing. Our skin absorbs that stuff too. But that's a very positive thing. We need to keep things diversified. We can't escape germs. They can help us in certain ways. So get outside, get dirty. Your gut will thank you. So like I said, I wanted to spend just one last minute here and talk about a couple terms you hear a lot: probiotics and prebiotics. Most of the foods I mentioned already, so I'm not going to go into specifics again with them, but I just wanted to break it down on which ones do what. Probiotics, that's the good bacteria that we've been talking about. Prebiotics are simply, to put it in a nutshell, food for the probiotics. So they're going to work together to keep the gut healthy. So again, quick list of foods that I've already mentioned. Miso I didn't mention before. That's just a Japanese seasoning. But those are the probiotics. And then the prebiotics are going to help feed the probiotics and help them work better is basically how it works out too. Supplements are a common question that we get to on probiotics. They definitely have a place, but again, with supplementation, quality and specifically when it comes to gut health, the quantity of the bacteria in them differs so much. So have a conversation with your doctor, do your research, find a high quality probiotic supplement if you feel that that's right for you. So that's all I got. Bottom line, our gut controls so much of our health, so we need to be feeding it with the right things. To be kind of corny here, it's like a car. If you don't put the right fuel in it, don't expect it to run the way you want. We need to make sure we're putting those right things in our body to help with that gut. So next couple webinars, we've got Improve by 5. This is kind of our new annual thing, just general tips on improving that health check score for the next screening. And then July, the war on fat, what you need to know about dietary fat. That's going to be a good one. So look, you can find out more on our blog and register for those on our blog. Again, contact us. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We've got our blog, which is where you can find the webinars, healthcheck360blog.com. I'll have that up probably tomorrow. Or give us a call if you want to chat with a health coach. We've got our phone number, or you can email healthcoach@healthcheck360.com. All right, let's see what time it is here. 12:26. So I'm going to see if there's any questions. Hold tight.